See this right here? This absolute beaut of a rig. It's a 93 F700, maybe 91, honestly can't remember. F700 with 429 gas in it. It's fantastic. Doesn't run. Did for a short amount of time, and now we're trying to figure out why it doesn't. We've done a little bit of diagnostic work, shade tree mechanic style, because that's how we operate here. And I want to pick up where we left off with that diagnostic work and see if we can't track down the problem here so we can get some parts ordered, because I need this thing running. Now, the realism in me knows that's probably not going to be the case, because I'm not actually a mechanic. I'm just a guy that plays one on YouTube sometimes. Before we can start working on it though, we got to get it where I want it. It's not quite there. So let's finish up this cleanup, get this thing shuttled over. So I'll probably try to rent Dirt Perfect's triaxle if I can. And I don't have a full triaxle's load worth of scrap, but we could haul off everything we have and then go pick up a load of stone maybe. But for the time being, we're just gonna shove this over here in the woods. Out of the way. So the goal is to try to kind of get it centered up in here where I got enough room for the 755, our little compact tractor down that side, so I can keep everything kind of clean and get the tractor parked over there. Aside from this absolutely moonscape, that's perfect. Let me get the little tractor fired up and we'll run the drag, get everything cleaned up. So the story on this was it ran when parked. I rented Dirt Perfect's lowboy, went up, picked this thing back, picked this thing up, and brought it down there. We ended up getting it running. She was stuck just a little bit. We got everything soaked down, pulled the plugs out, did that number, replaced the wires, all that stuff, and eventually we got her broke loose, and she was running and idling. This side's not really attached, so we gotta be kind of careful. Oh gosh. She was running, she was idling. We even drove around a little bit. Everything seemed to work on it. Steering worked, brakes worked, believe it or not. We couldn't get the dump bed engaged, but I do believe that was operator error. I had some tips on how to do that because it's an automatic. And anyway, that doesn't matter right now. Point is, this isn't your normal ran when parked, because the thing is, it ran when I parked it. Typically I'd go through and I'd check with the basics, make sure we're getting fuel, make sure we're getting spark, and make sure there's not a bird's nest in the airbox, which looks like we're okay there. But I know all of that to be okay. And when she quit running on us, it was kind of a mechanical sound, and she just stopped. So we thought maybe something inside, and we put a scope down this side, ran it all the way in and all the way back. We could see all the push rods in place, all the valves in place, all the rockers in place. That side looks good. One thing we can check real quick before we pop that valve cover off, we can drain the oil and try to shove that bore scope up inside the drain plug and at least make sure that all our connecting rods are in place and we've got rod caps, because if those are missing, well, that's going to tell us something, you know. Let's start with that. Oh yeah, well, that's not great. Looks like there's a little bit of water in there. It's not really what we want to see. That's certainly telling a story that I didn't want to hear. Daggone it. You think there's any oil in there at all? Oh, there's some oil. Cool. Oh man. What kind of cool things we're gonna find in there? Free coolant. What a bargain, man. I can't believe it came with that much free coolant. And in the oil pan, that's where I like to keep it. That there's only 2 ways that water got in there. There's 3 ways, but this truck doesn't have stacks, so I don't think anything, you know, filled up with water and came through the exhaust valves. Blown head gasket, pretty good option. Or whatever did fail mechanically, knocked a hole in the block, and, you know, now we got sections of the block interacting with each other in a fantastic mechanical social experiment. You know, when I bought this, I bought it because the frame is super solid, the bed is super solid, the cab's in great shape for its age. Because after the last truck build, I said I think I'd rather just rebuild an engine than rebuild a frame and cab. I didn't really mean it though. You know, it's just a figure of speech. Let me send one text real quick. Oh, so I know a tremendous amount of you are already watching Clint from CNC Equipment, but if you're not, you should, because the guy knows what he's doing. He does some fantastic things, and he said there's a third option. And this is why it's important to text people or talk to people that actually know what the heck they're doing. Could be something wrong with the oil cooler. So he said, see if there's any oil in the radiator. Okay, let's see if there's any oil in the radiator. So what we're looking for, according to the man that knows more about these than anybody I know, there's oil filter, and there's lines coming from the oil filter going into the bottom of the radiator. So I'm guessing that the oil cooler is built into the radiator, and maybe there's an internal failure there. But like he said, if we can check in the radiator to see if there's any oil in there, that's gonna tell the story, and we're gonna know there's a failure. And he said, if that is it, disconnect those lines and plug them. Let's see if we can see if there's oil in the radiator or not. Now on this, we've got a coolant reservoir up top, so it didn't really tell us much. But hell, the other option is to drain the radiator, see what comes out of it. That line goes into the radiator, so I'm guessing, and what he's saying, if I'm understanding right, is there's an oil cooler built into the radiator, and that's probably failed and it's letting stuff bypass. So it's going to tell the tale that we disconnect this hose, which goes into it, and we'll drain the radiator. And if there's oil that comes out with it at some point, it should be water at first, but if there's oil that comes out with it at some point, then we know that that's what's failed. Miraculously, we were able to get the drain to the radiator open without it breaking. And we're just gonna let her run, see if any oil shows up in this. I really want oil to show up in this, because if that's what it is, that's a fairly simple, compared to a head gasket, fairly simple fix. So we got the little scope here, and a little light. Let's see if we can't see something in here. I have no sense of orientation as far as what's up and what's down. I just can't tell. I can't tell the scope. Okay. All right. It's kind of hard to see what's going on with that camera. Maybe you'll see it better whenever I look at the computer itself. Here's my plan. As terrible as it may sound, I'm going to disconnect the oil cooler setup, plug everything off, coolant, oil, turn, see if she spins. If she does, we'll fix that spark plug I messed up, and we'll see what happens. Send a rod through the block, you know. All right, let's do that. So we got that one loose there. Next one, I don't know if you can see my hand, right in there. Anyway, we're gonna hit her with the old razzle dazzle here. There's my wrench. Hopefully she comes off pretty easy then. So I figure out how to get a wrench in. There we go. Get over. Oh yeah, easy peasy. I'm just gonna disconnect them from there, and I'll probably still leave that housing on, and I'll just get some caps to put on those fittings. Same thing for the radiator. Okay. So with those off, if that was in fact the problem, we would just plug this end and then plug the two fittings on the radiator end, and then the oil cooler just lives in there forever, all by itself, and that should be fine. I just really want to lay eyes on what's going on that crank with the connecting rods. So let's just pull that pan. I can't even begin to tell you how nervous I am right now about what we might find in here, or if these bolts even come out. Yeah, stretch that suspension out a little bit. That gap's getting bigger between the axle and the oil pan. Oops. There it is. We just weren't putting the right wiggles in. Just sludgy, which is what I was expecting. I mean, no big chunks. Just the sludge you'd expect to see if you had a bunch of coolant in there. Cool. Let's get a light and take a gander. No, not yet. Not that light yet. One thing I was curious about is if we possibly broke the timing chain, but there's the timing chain, and it appears to be intact. That rod's straight. Look okay. If I got a way I can get a wrench on the front of this and turn it slow while I'm down here. What do we got up front here? I mean, I don't have a lot of throw over here. So at this point, we've been around real slow about twice. The suspicious thing is the water coming out of, but there's water dripping out of that cylinder wall So what I still don't know is if that water's coming from a head gasket leak or if that's residual water from a leak in the oil cooler that was pulled up through the system. One last investigatory, that's a fun word, step I want to do. I want to pull that lower radiator hose and I want to see it comes out. I know we ran it through the drain, but I want to pull that hose and I want to see what it's like. Please give me some oil. Show me a sign. Oh man, just clean coolant, clean-ish coolant. That's where we're at. The lower radiator hose is reattached. We'll sneak in here. We just plugged those. New filter, went ahead and filled the filter as well. And if you look down in here, just JIC cap on both of those. Nothing too fancy. Got everything tightened up, oil pan back on. That oil pan gasket's a rubber gasket and looked in good shape. We tried to clean it up best we could. At this point, not top priority, something we could address in the future if it's just gushing out, but you know, there's stuff gushing in. New spark plug over there for the one we broke. We're at the point now, we just see if the taking it apart and putting it back together changes the outcome. Well, the wild news is it turns over pretty good, and I don't know how charged that battery is. The weird. We're getting there, baby. We're working through some things. That did not sound great. Yeah, she doesn't sound great. I think we can all agree with that. A lot of smoke on that side. I'm sure that's fine. So this is broken off here. I'm assuming that's supposed to be attached to that. And that's broken off, so we're just puking oil out the top right now, which isn't. She's not ideal. Even though we didn't get it running, she cranked a lot and she tried to run and she did some pretty nasty stuff. So what I'm gonna do, we'll let everything settle and drain, and then we'll crack that drain plug and we'll see what comes out. Getting ready to unlatch the hood, and look at this fella. Look at him. Oh, easy, easy. No, I'm sorry. Be right back. He's getting ready to ruin my morning. We had a little bit of a hood incident, by the way. Appears to not be a thing that is attached anymore. Still a good cover. Anyway, it's a new morning. I don't know what we're gonna do with this. I guess we're just gonna drag it and plop it. Kind of the least of our concerns right now, isn't it? Let's see much other option other than that. Oh, the cables are still gonna hold it. Just balances for us. There, we'll sit it like that. So before we drain that plug and see what's in the oil pan now, we've isolated the oil cooler. So if that was a failure, we've isolated it and we shouldn't have a problem with it anymore. But she still runs really rough. She doesn't sound great. There was some water in the oil and it could have come from the head gasket as well. From owning a Subaru, the old rubber glove on the radiator cap with a zip tie can work pretty well to give us a little indication. I try to go, there's the little spout there for like the overflow. I try to capture the overflow in everything. And what we're looking for, we'll crank on this a little bit. And what we're looking for is see if this thing tries to inflate at all. Because if the head gasket's blown, then there should be compression gases getting into the coolant or the cooling system. And we should see those gases kind of start to inflate this a little bit. So I'm gonna hook the battery back up and we'll see what we get going here. So rough to non-existent idle. Water where it's not supposed to be. And hopefully it picked up a little bit with just the slight cranking we did. Definitely some combustion gases. Something that's supposed to be in there coming through the coolant system. 99% sure we've got our answer. I'd say that's a head gasket issue. Just for fun, we'll crack that drain plug and see how much water showed up in that short amount of time, but just need to keep the weather out really, you know. Let's see what shows up here. If there's a lot of water, there it goes. It'll come out before the oil does. Oh yeah. Yep. There you go. I'd say we're officially diagnosed with what we think the problem is. Let's call it a head gasket. I'm gonna get some stuff ordered. We're not gonna go crazy with it. An in-frame like we did on the 555, we'll probably do the head gasket since we're in there. And it's easy access, rings, rod bearings, that type of thing. Throw her back together and run it. Disconnecting that oil cooler, although that was not the problem, it was just a super easy way, like Clint said, it's disconnected. So we know as we go through diagnosis that that's eliminated as a problem, and now it's eliminated as a problem in the future. We'll never have an issue with it again. Tech manuals came in today as well, so we've got that information and everything we need to get this thing rebuilt. I still think it's gonna be a good truck, and no more money than what we got into it, and no more money than, I mean, we really don't know until we get deep into it how much money it's gonna be, because we could find other things, but preliminarily, it's still gonna be a good truck for around the property. A lot of people have suggested putting that bed on the Super Duty build. It doesn't look like it on camera, but the Super Duty would fit inside of that bed. And the amount of money and time it would take for me to modify that bed to fit on the Super Duty, I could just buy a bed for the Super Duty. You know what I mean? So it just makes sense. We'll get this thing torn down here in the near future, start getting some parts coming in, and hopefully she'll be a runner by the end of the summer. It's gotta happen, because it rhymes. Runner by the end of the summer.